Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bucket Think Tank for Books of the Week. And today we're going to start off with Avengers issue number 7. So, our story opens up a million years ago, the year 1 million to be exact, with a cave boy on Earth. And he's a bit worried about his life because he's smarter than other cavemen. He can communicate with something other than grunts and fists. And he's scared because the other cave people would more likely throw him out into the big white/snow out of fear of him. And while this is going on, a stranger comes in from the big white, garbed in white, and with his knife, he asserts himself as the chief of the cave people. And this stranger then talks to the boy, showing that he can also make the sounds. And the stranger says that a few in the many packs of the ape man can, and reveals that he comes from a pack that was also afraid to leave their caves and thought that the world was always ending, and one day it was finally true, and he reveals that he is actually some kind of monster and eats everyone in the cave but the boy, who he names Ghost because he's dead and he doesn't even know it yet. And the stranger says if he wants to know his name, they'll just have to chase after him, and he walks off. As the now named Ghost goes looking for the stranger in the snow, he eventually collapses from the cold and is met by a white serpent who says if he wants to die, yeah, I can take you there. But he also has a better offer, an offer of finding the stranger and getting more revenge than he could possibly imagine. But what really sold Ghost onto this serpent's offer was the offer to be warm and never not be warm. And he nearly freezes to death before he can say the name of the serpent, Mephisto, and he becomes the spirit of vengeance. And now, with a flaming woolly mammoth, because woolly mammoths are awesome, in a short span of 5 years, he finds the stranger, who reveals himself to be Wendigo, and the two of them fight, and at the cost of his flaming mammoth friend, no victory without sacrifice, Wendigo falls presumably to his death, though he says he'll be back, and the spirit of vengeance feels alone now, and he feels lost and alone until he's met by the Phoenix Force in human form and Odin, who need his help to quote-unquote save the world. So Avengers issue 7 was interesting, really. As someone who's not really that interested in Ghost Rider, this was a fun little adventure for me, I'm not gonna lie. The caveman story felt a bit standard, nothing too out of the ordinary. I think if this is going to be a thing where we find out how all these players came to join in what would be like the very first Avengers 1 million, I'd be interested in seeing more of this, like, the first Iron Fist, the first Sorcerer Supreme, the first Black Panther. All of that I think would be very interesting. Here I think the best thing for me was the Mammoth, because the Mammoth was awesome. Overall, this was a really solid issue. And let's go to an issue that was actually so solid that I chose not to review the actual book I was going to run here. So, Batman Kings of Fear issue 1 is next. Batman breaks up one of the Joker's crimes in what can only be called a prelude to the Arkham Asylum game, as he fights his way through his henchmen and ultimately gets him. He acquires the Joker and places him in the back of the Batmobile, where Joker spends most of the ride trying to goad Batman before Batman finally just says, like, you know what, fine, knock out gas and go away to the asylum. As he brings Joker in, he's greeted by one of the doctors who, among other things, is complaining about how Batman can just waltz in here, where others, including herself, had to go through extensive background checks just to work. She then breaks out the old, "You are culpable for some of their insanity" chestnut, only to be met by Batman saying that their insanity is no more his fault than them not being cured is hers, which I found to be hilarious. It is then that the alarm goes off and Batman leaves to find that most everyone from the first two Arkham Asylum games is broken out of their cells just to jump Batman with the Joker. Batman turns off the lights and uses the chaos to take them all out. It's actually a really, really awesome scene. Really great. I gotta call a lot of it into question. I gotta call a lot of that into question. But whatever. And the doctor at the beginning, who we saw at the beginning, chastises Batman for it because while it stops them, it also just validates them. It is then that their argument is interrupted by news that the Scarecrow escaped and he is taken a hostage. Batman goes out looking for him, but is quickly jumped by Scarecrow and given a dose of his fear gas as the comic ends. So it was between this and Batman issue 54. I was a bit torn between which one to do. If you recall, there was no new video last week, which was a bit of a shame. I could have done this in another book, but I just didn't have the time. And last week, like the end of the month, is often like a weird week for books. But anyway, this was fun. As I said before, this is pretty much Arkham Asylum, the comic book, which is weird because there already is a comic book called Arkham Asylum, and it's really just the Batman and Joker. But this one is just fun. I'm not really sold on the art. Looks a bit weird in some places. But I love it because it does make things look scary. Scarecrow looks scary. It's not trying too hard scary, which I felt was a problem in the Arkham Knight game, but that voice acting was still brilliant. Oh, best, best, best Scarecrow voice. Best Scarecrow voice. Overall, this was fun. I feel like we're going to have an interesting argument between Batman and the Doctor here, or at the very least, flesh her out more. I'd like to know her name. Like the argument, like you cause more harm than good. It's a bit more reminiscent of the DA in the episode "The Trial" of the original Batman animated series, where I forget her name. The DA thinks that Batman causes more harm than good, and secretly she's also dating Bruce Wayne. So Batman is just, I don't know. Bruce just loves his danger. But overall, this was actually, it was really good. It was really good. Not gonna lie. Speaking of other things that are good. Death of the Inhumans, issue 3. So this one opens up with Medusa as she's waiting for news on the return of Black Bolt and Karnak, and she gets news from Crystal and Gorgon that Karnak stole a ship, and through Karnak they get the rundown of what happened. Meanwhile, Vox watches Black Bolt get stitched back up, and notes that Black Bolt isn't making a sound despite the fact that he has no sedatives or aesthetics. His voice is gone, and the prophecy can never come to pass, because if he could scream, he would. This means his voice isn't working. Despite this, it turns out that Black Bolt can actually use his voice, but just barely. He's still struggling to use it, and he eventually is able to muster the strength to take out the 2 guards with his voice, using only the names of those killed by the Kree, and begins to go on the hunt, so to speak. Meanwhile, Medusa and the others are looking for someone who can help, and Gorgon notes that they haven't talked to this particular person in a while, and that while he wants to be left alone, there are few people who they can go to who have his kind of power, who isn't afraid of war, and has flexible allegiances, according to Medusa. Meanwhile, Black Bolt comes across Ronan the Accuser, who is currently being experimented on by the Kree, and he reveals that he was on Harlem when the Kree attacked, and that they are trying to turn him into some kind of monster. And that is what Vox and the others do. To those they can't change, they will either kill or break, and in Black Bolt's case, they need to break him. The comic ultimately ends with Medusa and company arriving on Marcus Centauri, where they meet the person they've been searching for, Beta Ray Bill! So, this has been another solid issue for Death of the Inhumans. We're 3 for 3 now. The mystery that it was Beta Ray Bill, I think, is really it's probably only a mystery to people that don't quite know about Beta Ray Bill and his interactions with Lockjaw, because that's sort of the main reason why Beta Ray Bill is helping. They even say, like, Beta Ray Bill and Lockjaw, they were good friends, they had adventures together. Once he finds out what happened to Lockjaw, he's bound to be on her side. And even when he overhears that Medusa and company are coming, his first response is like, I'm not helping anybody, you just go away. And then they mention Lockjaw, like, wait, what did they do to Lockjaw? Apparently, in Death of the Inhumans, the one Inhuman you can't kill is Lockjaw the dog. Apparently, all Inhumans are secretly John Wick. Speaking of other weird surprises coming up here, Justice League issue number 7. So this story opens up with a flashback to Vandal Savage as he sees the totality for the first time in the sky, and that was the moment he became who we know him as, almost as if to hide what he saw that day. In other words, everything about Vandal Savage may have just been a facade. That doesn't really matter. In the present day, we see Hawker and Lex Luthor fighting, and it seems that the doorknob, the cosmic doorknob, which is still like the weirdest thing ever, it has no real effect on Kendra, and her wings also seem to react to the totality, but Lex is able to break away and approach the totality, and hints that whatever is in there is alive. But luckily, Hawker is able to just wound him a bit before he gets actually there. Meanwhile, on the other side, John explains to us what the planet is now. If you recall when we last left off with this story, the combined efforts of John Stewart and the car with the Speed Force and Martian Manhunter telecommunicating with everyone, the planet turned into a white lantern. And John explains this is possible because the white element is the element of life, both good and bad. When with Martian being able to connect everyone to the planet, Flash just has to access the Still Force to close the doorway to Umbrax, but it's taking time, and John says this is because Barry is so used to moving and being in control, where John has had the opposite problem ever since Zan-Shi. But before he can truly communicate that, John is interrupted by Sinestro, who among other things destroys the car. Sinestro then reveals that John has actually possibly made things worse because by severing the connection to Umbrax, the Umbrax armies have no choice but to fire on Earth, destroying it, but Superman attempts to intervene, and we don't quite really see anything that comes from that. While Flash attempts to enter the Still Force, Uh, Again, he's being stopped by Cheetah and Black Manta, who attempt to destroy the base, which requires Aquaman and Wonder Woman to attempt to hold them off. Because, Cheetah and Black Manta and Aquaman and Wonder Woman have, so little to do in this story, but everyone else is working, so it's fine. As Barry attempts to try again to enter the Still Force. While in the Still Force this time, he sees more than a design. He sees the blueprint of the universes that never came to be and is able to close the door, sending Umbrax back. Meanwhile, Lex, who has just been injured, who is still injured by Hawkgirl, tries to stop her from reaching it, only to be teleported back to the Legion of Doom headquarters by Joker, and Lex tells him to call the others back to base. And by call back, I mean teleport back. Hawkgirl has brought the totality, now smaller, back to the hall, and looks a bit like a cosmic cube, but less compact and hopefully less MacGuffin-y. And meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, everyone, and I mean Justice League Dark, possibly Justice League Odyssey is there, Adam Strange is there, Animal Man is there, didn't even know he was still around. But they're here, and everyone tries to figure out what they should be doing next. John wants to head back to Thanagar Prime with John and Kendra from the Martian Keeper of Memory because that person may know something more, as well as the fact that Thanagar Prime is a host and just a horde of old secrets from times gone by, even universe-level secrets and whatnot. Meanwhile, Aquaman and Wonder Woman talk about alerting Atlantis that them is scared about Black Manta and Cheetah, as well as the specimens in the tanks, which seem to be fusions of Atlantean and Amazonian tech as well as Martian tech, before they're interrupted by Starman exploding in and saying that he has the answers they seek, but first, 3 of them must die. We'll give you 2.5. But anyway, the comic ultimately ends with Lex Luthor realizing that he needs more help to deal with the Justice League and reveals his new player, his new trump card. Fresh from Dark Knight's metal, or maybe the Immortal Man, I'm not quite sure, the Batman Who Laughs. Justice League issue number 7 is... It's a heavy read, honestly, and it's not like it's overly complex, but there's a lot going on. And I'm not quite sure if we could have trimmed this down a bit. It's not bad, but it always feels like maybe we didn't need this, maybe we didn't need that. We definitely didn't need the Vandal Savage part at the beginning. At least I don't think so. I mean, Vandal Savage, I think, is a key player in this story. I think the story will require Vandal Savage. And the quote Gandalf to abridge Gandalf, "The madness of Vandal Savage may rule the fate of many." I want to watch Lord of the Rings now. Anyway, coming up to our final book, The Immortal Hulk, issue number 5. So we're greeted with a flashback to the days of Walter being on Alpha Flight, and it's presumably his last day there as Captain Marvel questions if he's alright, and his response is first to think that they believe he's possessed by Tonrock. And Captain Marvel just says that, he's been in that transformed state for so long, they haven't seen him go back to Walter. And in his private room, he turns back into Walter, but he admits that it was harder than he thought it would be than it usually is. And he looks in the mirror, he sees Tonrock. Back in the present day, Banner tells Alex that she needs to place an order to evacuate the hospital as he himself tries to calm Walter down, and as instead he gets his throat cut open, which only helps Hulk come out more. Hulk then confirms that this isn't Walter, that despite Walter's faults, he wasn't a murderer, and that because Walter likes to be liked so much, and that people only like him when he's the Sasquatch, that he stayed in that form for too long, which opened the Green Door, which led to that story before, I want to say 2 issues ago, issue 3, with, the different stories going on, and the Green Door, which led to someone else taking his place, and that this is when the Sasquatch points to the window, which shows that it's not Tonrock or Walter controlling the Sasquatch, but instead is Brian Banner, the abusive father of Bruce. And the whole time I'm thinking of that legendary moment in Empire Strikes Back when you killed my father. Like, no, I am your father. Except it's not even like you killed my father. Like, no, I'm just your dad. Yeah, you killed your father, Bruce. This throws the Hulk off, but only for a bit. Actually, it's a pretty fair bit, because Brian Banner is, for those of you that don't know, one of the reasons Bruce Banner is the way he is because of his abusive dad. His dad even killed his mother. So it's always been an issue for Bruce, and Hulk is the one that kills him originally in the story. And Hulk is able to, throw Brian off for a bit, but only for a short bit, and as he's able to find him off, he tries the information as to how he's inside Sasquatch, and after absorbing the gamma radiation, Walter returns back to normal. And as the cleanup begins, Hulk pretty much asks Alex why she's been looking for Banner all this time, because it goes beyond just journalistic curiosity. And she says that she saw him attack her neighborhood and destroy her home when she was 15, and her one question is how she can end up like him. She wants to be like the Hulk, and I'm freaked out. Hulk's freaked out. He tells her to go home, and as he leaves, he sees his reflection in a car, and instead of himself or Banner, he sees Brian Banner. So Immortal Hulk number 5 has been really, really interesting. I think when this is over, I'm going to have to like sit down and attempt to horribly psychoanalyze this book, because there's all these different psychiatric quotes about, you know, about human nature, about the reflections, about who we are, who we don't want to see in the mirror. It's all really great stuff. And this story was great because, first of all, I didn't think Alex McGee was crazy. I didn't think she was. I thought, you know, I think what we all thought was that, hey, the Hulk killed her dad and she's trying to get closure by finding out why he did it or whatever. Turns out she wants to be like the Hulk. I don't understand that. It just threw me for a loop. And the idea that Walter Lankowski, that Sasquatch, was being controlled by Brian Banner, Bruce's abusive dad, it just sort of turns everything on its head, because throughout most of this book, Hulk has been sort of, in his own way, like the Spectre or like the Ghost Rider, imploring this judgment on people. And, you know, like, he's the madness that they're all trying to pretend that they aren't. And this is literally the reason why Bruce Banner is the way he is. His dad is now the opponent, and now his dad may be in control of the Hulk. But that begs the question as to where is Bruce Banner? Love it. This has been a really great week for comics. Maybe not Batman issue 54, because that just it was sort of boring. Like, it was well-meaning, but it was boring. And we'll hopefully get back to regular Batman next week. Or we'll probably also be doing Batman Kings of Fear. Anyway, with that in mind, we're bringing this video to a close here. Really quick announcement. We'll be doing a review on the Legend of Korra graphic novel, because all 3 parts of Turf Wars came out, and yeah, we're gonna tackle that bear soon, and we'll have some other projects coming up. If you're new to the Bucket Think Tank, feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you read any of these books, I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. If you read a book that I didn't go over here, feel free to leave that down. I'm open to suggestions. Check out some of my other videos on this channel. It really helps. And I will catch you all later. This is the Bucket Think Tank signing off. May your fandom serve you well.